Welcome everyone to this Spring tutorial. So today we'll create a Spring Boot application that will connect to MongoDB, and we'll create some document and list the data available in MongoDB. So to do that, we will need Spring tools that you can download on this website to create the Spring Boot application. You can choose your OS just here. Then we'll need Postman. So with Postman, we will create student and we'll list the available student by executing some REST request. Then of course we'll need MongoDB that you can download from this website, and we'll need Robotree just to visualize our Mongo data. So when you will download MongoDB, you have to choose the zip file. Once it's done, you will download this zip file. Then my folder is just here. You will go to the bin folder. Then you will copy your bin folder. And you will open a terminal on Windows, for example. Then we'll go to your bin folder and just execute the command mongod. And my Mongo didn't started. Why? Because it didn't find the directory data.db. So I will just go on my C storage, then I will create a folder with the name of data. So data, I will go into my folder, then I will create another folder, db. And that's all. So I will run my command mongod, and now my Mongo is running on my localhost. So you can see here listening on localhost address, and it's connected on this port 27017. Then you will need to download Robotree to visualize your data easily. So you can just go here and download Robotree only. So once it's downloaded, you will get this interface. Welcome. So we'll go to manage connection and create connection, and by default you will have the localhost address with the port of my running localhost Mongo. Then save, and I will connect to my localhost Mongo. And here I have some log just here. Connection accepted. Received client metadata. And here I have my database. So for now it's empty. Just some config for Mongo. So now I will go to the Spring tools. So of course you have to download Spring tools. Then I will create a new Spring Boot application. So new Spring Starter project. So Mongo project. I am using Java 8 and this version of Spring Boot. Then I will need some dependencies: Spring Boot DevTools, Spring Data MongoDB to use MongoDB, and finally Spring Web for controller. Next, finish. First of all, I have to configure my Mongo database running just here. I have to configure the host and the port for my Spring Boot application. So my project is just here. I will go to application properties. Then first of all, I will choose a port for my for my Spring Boot application. So the port will be 6039, for example. Then for Mongo, I will use Spring Data MongoDB URI equal to MongoDB. Then I am on localhost, so the port is 27,017, and the name of my database will be student DB, like database. So now I have just configured my Mongo database on my Spring Boot application. So for now, my Spring Boot application is empty. I will create a class. So first I will create an entity, for example, student. Finish. So for my student, I will give him an ID. So it's a good practice to use long as type for the Mongo ID. And here string name, then string age. No, the age will be double. And here, so private int grade, of course. Then I will generate some constructor. So I will go to source, constructor from superclass without any parameter. Then I will generate another constructor using field this time, all the field, but I won't use ID because MongoDB will generate a unique ID for my student. So I will just organize this a little. Then I will generate some getter and setter. So generate getter and setter for all my field, generate, and now I have my entity. So it must be a document for MongoDB. And I will give a name for my collection document, and the name will be student. So I will import document from MongoDB dependencies. And for the ID, I will use the annotation ID from Spring Data. And that's all for my entity. So to make this cleaner, I will put my entity in another package. I will name it model. So it's more clean to do that. So then I will create another class, new class, student repository. So we create this class to access the data and to do some action on my Mongo data. So it's not a class, it's an interface. Sorry. And my interface will extend another interface, Mongo repository. So I must give two parameters. The first is my object, the concerned object, student. And the type of my unique ID is long. But with generics, I have to use wrapper class and not primitive. I can't use primitive here. I have to use wrapper class. And I will use the annotation repository. So that's all. I will put this in another package to make it cleaner. Repo move. So now I have to create a controller. So new student controller, finish. So this is a REST controller, REST. Then I will have two methods. One method to create a student and another method to list all my students. So the first one will be get all students. So in my method it will return a list of students. And I will use another method that will create student. Create one student. So it's I can return a string. So return student created. Then to get my endpoint, I have to use request mapping, and it will be a get mapping, so I can use the shortcut get mapping. So here the value will be equal to all, and I have to use my repository to get my student and to be able to create some student. So public, I will use my interface student repository. The variable, the name of the variable will be student repository, and I have to use the annotation auto-wired to use my repository in my controller class. I have to import my repository, and here I can use some implemented method find all. For example, it will return all the students available in the database. And for the other method to create student, I will use post mapping. I will import my post mapping, and here I will use create. I will give him a request body, and the student, the signature of my controller to create student will be a request body of type student, and the name of variable will be student. Here I will also use the student repository, and here insert entity, and I will take my student just here, and once my student is inserted, so inserted student, I will just display the name of the created student, so get name, and that's all. And I will put my controller in another package, so it will be cleaner. I have to import, I have just to delete this one. So now it's all. So we have created an entity student with those annotation, so Mongo will understand that is a Mongo document. Then we have created student repository interface to access some method just here. You can go on Mongo repository and read the documentation about the different available method. Then we have created a controller which will be our endpoint to access our different data. So now you have to download Postman just here to test our Spring Boot application. So first of all, I will start my Spring Boot application. The name is Mongo project. I will go here, start. So my application started with no problem. It's already connected to Mongo, and my database is created. So I will go to MongoDB and refresh my database. So now so I have a problem just while receiving. So I will restart my application and I will use Postman. So here I have my Postman just here. I will come here and create a new project. So new collection, Mongo test project, create. Here I have my Mongo test project and I will add a request. So add request. So list different student, save. So here I have a get request and I will also create another request, add request. So create student, save. So to create a student, the request must be a post, and to list different students, it will be a get. So my application is running. So my application is running on this port 6039. So we'll come here, localhost 6039, and to list different students, the endpoint is just here all. So I will save my request and I will go to my post request. So the URI will be create and not all, and I have to put some request body to create a student just here, request body student. So to do that, I will go to body, I will go to row, and here I will create a JSON format to create my student. Then I will go to my entity just here. So every student has a name. So for example, my first student will be named Mad Max, of course. Then the age of this student, age will be a double. So it's 40.5 or just 40 for now. And the grade of this student will be 15. So that's the body of my post request, and this body will go into my request body. So first of all, let's test this request. So I hope my Mongo is still running just here. So I will stop my MongoDB. I will run my MongoDB. I will restart my application. And my first request, all, I don't have any students, so the result is empty. So for my second request, I will just put this here. For my second request to create a student, I will just run it. So it's not working. Why? Because here I choose text, but I have to choose JSON. So comma just here, send, and my student Mad Max has been just created. So I will open my robot Riti just here. And here I have my database student. In my collection I have student. And in my student collection I have one student and is Mad Max with the age 40 and the grade 15. The class of this student is student. And the ID is 0 because with the annotation ID it's generated automatically by MongoDB. So I will create another student. So Clementine. So the age is 36 and the grade is 20. Send. Duplicate key error. Why? Because it didn't created a unique ID. So here I don't know if I didn't import the right ID. Import. So I will just create so it's not generated by Mongo because I didn't use the right annotation, but I will create the student with the ID. So I have just changed the constructor just here. So now I will add the ID for my student. So ID for Clementine will be some random number. So now send. So my student Clementine is just created. I will create another student. So Dave, the grade is 6 and the age is 26. Send. Then another student, Mark. So some random and with a good mark and with a random ID. Send. Then we can go on my MongoDB on RoboTreaty and refresh. So here I have my different students. So now I have 4 students. And in RoboTreaty you can execute a Mongo request. For example, you want a student with the name Clementine. Run, and here you have the Clementine. So you can run some Mongo request on RoboTreaty easily. And here if I use my other endpoint to list all my students, sorry, I have created another get request. So all next, and here I have all my students. So you can create as many students as you want here. So Paul with different unique ID. But Mongo can also generate some unique ID, but not with this annotation. Maybe with generated. I will look at it afterward. So here I have created a Paul student just here and list, and here I have all my students. And you can check, refresh, and you have to check your data on MongoTreaty. So you can also use another other method in the repository to update a student, to find all students, to find some student with save many students and many stuff. And for our endpoint in the controller, for example, now I am testing my Spring Boot application on Postman, but for example you can run this on your front end to get all the students of Mongo database by a simple Ajax request. and to display it in a table or other stuff. So thank you for your attention, and don't hesitate to subscribe, and see you for more tutorial on Spring and also on Java, and maybe on React afterwards. Thank you for watching.